I was studying a business, right? I went to be a businessman like my dad. And the Lord spoke to me.
Mark Lowry and fans everywhere are deeply concerned. What started as quiet whispers has turned into serious speculation about major troubles facing one of gospel music's most beloved figures. Could there be hidden financial issues, personal struggles, or even legal trouble behind Mark's sudden disappearance from the spotlight? People close to him seem tight-lipped and worried, making fans wonder what's truly going on. Has something shocking happened to Mark Lowry, or is it all just gossip? Stay tuned as we uncover what really happened to Mark Lowry. Rumors about Mark Lowry's health problems. In recent months, rumors began swirling around Mark Lowry, and fans started noticing something was clearly wrong. Mark, known for his humor and vibrant stage presence, seemed different. He began appearing less often at concerts, and when he did, he looked tired and withdrawn. People quickly noticed the change and wondered quietly among themselves, was something serious happening behind the scenes? The gossip intensified when Mark's wife began quietly sharing her concerns with close friends, although she never made official public statements. Small pieces of information started leaking out. Friends said she seemed worried and stressed, hinting privately that Mark was struggling with health issues. Nobody else knew about these whispered conversations. Quickly turned into bigger rumors. Soon social media was full of questions and theories about what exactly was wrong with Mark Lowry. Some fans guessed it might be a chronic illness that Mark had kept hidden from the public for a long time. Others suggested he was simply exhausted after years of non-stop performing and traveling. A few even believed he might be dealing with deep emotional struggles, depression or anxiety, things many performers experience privately but rarely share openly. Mark's followers debated these theories passionately, sure what to believe. The lack of clear information from Mark himself only added to the mystery, adding fuel to the speculation. Mark cancelled several concerts unexpectedly. His fans, who had always counted on seeing him perform, felt worried and confused. Concert organizers offered vague reasons, citing only personal health concerns or saying Mark needed to rest and recover. These unclear explanations left fans with even more questions than before. Soon online forums filled with fans discussing their concerns about Mark. Some claimed they'd seen him recently looking very unwell, pale and noticeably thinner. Others insisted they had information directly from sources close to his family that Mark had been visiting doctors frequently. These bits of information, true or not, kept fans deeply concerned. The uncertainty led many to imagine the worst, fueling anxiety within his community of followers. Despite all these rumors, Mark himself remained quiet, avoiding the public eye as much as possible. Whenever he briefly appeared in public, he avoided answering direct questions about his health, politely changing topics or giving short, reassuring answers without much detail. His wife also kept her statements brief, simply saying he needed rest and prayers. This cautious silence only added to the intrigue and concern surrounding Mark's mysterious health struggles. As speculation continued to grow, fans hoped desperately for clear answers. They worried deeply about Mark's well-being, praying regularly for his recovery, yet without direct explanations. Rumors continued to build, leaving everyone anxiously wondering what was truly happening to the beloved gospel star. The shocking incident, the car accident, but one night everything suddenly changed for Mark Lowry. It was a rainy evening, dark clouds filling the sky. Mark had just finished performing at a church event outside of town, one of the few appearances he'd managed to make in recent weeks. Despite feeling tired and not fully healthy, Mark insisted on driving himself home. He felt determined to prove to himself and to everyone else that he could still handle his life, that the rain had created deep puddles On the road, suddenly, without warning, his tires hit a large pool of water, causing his car to lose control. Mark desperately gripped the steering wheel, trying to regain control as the car slid sideways, its tires slipping on the slick pavement. His heart pounded in panic as he frantically pressed the brakes, but it was too late. The vehicle began spinning uncontrollably, and Mark's whole world became a blur. Everything seemed to move in slow motion as he felt the car sliding toward the roadside barrier. The impact was violent. Mark's car slammed into the metal barrier, crumpling like a tin can. The force of the crash shattered the windshield, instantly, glass exploding around him. Mark felt a sharp pain shoot through his body as the airbag deployed, violently pushing him backward against his seat. He was stunned, struggling to breathe, dizzy from shock and pain. Blood dripped slowly down his forehead, mixing with the rainwater pouring through the broken windows. Mark was barely conscious, but he knew instantly that something was terribly wrong. Cars passing by quickly stopped, their headlights illuminating the wreckage. Several people ran toward the crushed vehicle, shouting questions, asking if Mark was okay. He tried to respond, but his voice was weak and faint. Within minutes, sirens echoed in the distance, growing louder as emergency vehicles rushed toward the scene. Paramedics carefully pulled Mark from the twisted metal wreckage, speaking calmly and gently as they assessed his injuries. They quickly realized his condition was serious, loading him onto a stretcher and into the ambulance as fast as possible. At the hospital, doctors immediately began examining Mark, discovering multiple severe injuries. He had several broken ribs, a fractured collarbone, and a badly broken leg. The medical team moved quickly to stabilize him, performing urgent surgery to repair his injuries and stop internal bleeding. Mark spent several hours in surgery, while his family waited anxiously outside the operating room, praying for good news. When the doctors finally spoke with them, they explained clearly that although Mark had survived, his injuries were significant. He would face a long and difficult recovery ahead. The news of Mark's accident spread quickly. Within hours, social media exploded with worried messages and prayers from fans around the world. People shared the news, expressing shock and deep concern for Mark's health and future. Rumors about his previous health struggles quickly resurfaced, with many fans wondering if this terrible accident might have been preventable. Fans questioned why Mark had been driving alone, especially given recent concerns about his health. Conversations online grew emotional, with many people praying public and privately for Mark's speedy recovery. Back in the hospital, Mark faced difficult, painful days. Every movement brought intense discomfort. Simple tasks like breathing deeply or shifting in bed felt excruciating. Doctors and nurses worked carefully to manage his pain, but the emotional struggle was even harder than the physical pain. Mark felt deeply discouraged, frustrated by his situation. He worried about how long his recovery would take and whether he'd ever fully heal. The uncertainty was emotional, exhausting, adding extra stress to an already difficult situation. Mark also wrestled with regret. Lying alone in the hospital bed, he replayed the accident in his mind, endlessly questioning his decision to drive himself that night. He wondered why he hadn't accepted the help others had offered, why he'd stubbornly insisted on proving himself. Mark realized that his own pride and stubbornness had contributed to this painful outcome. Accepting this realization was tough, causing feelings of shame and embarrassment, yet deep inside he knew it was an important lesson, one he had learned in the hardest possible way. Mark's wife stayed constantly by his side. She comforted him through the darkest moments, reassuring him he wasn't alone. She spoke encouraging words, prayed with him, and reminded him constantly of the thousands of people supporting and praying for him. Every day her presence provided Mark enormous emotional strength. He realized clearly how deeply he relied on her, not only for physical care but emotional support. This realization was humbling, making him appreciate even more deeply the love and loyalty of his family. Throughout his hospital stay, Mark received countless messages of support. Fans sent letters, cards, and gifts filled with encouragement and prayers. Churches around the country held special prayer meetings asking for Mark's healing and comfort for his family. Mark felt deeply. Family and faith. The accident, though traumatic, ultimately became a turning point for Mark. During his weeks in the hospital, he had plenty of time to reflect on his life. He began seeing things differently, recognizing the importance of slowing down, accepting help, and valuing relationships above career or public image. This shift in perspective began reshaping his worldview, dramatically affecting how he saw himself and the world around him. Though he knew the road ahead would remain challenging, Mark felt determined to move forward. He was unsure whether he'd ever fully return to performing or public speaking, but that uncertainty no longer filled him with fear. Instead, he felt peaceful, trusting that whatever came next was part of a bigger purpose. Mark Lowry, though physically broken, began to find emotional and spiritual strength he never knew existed, preparing himself for whatever the future might bring. His wife's reaction, fan support, and Mark's recovery. When news of Mark Lowry's serious car accident reached his wife, she was immediately devastated. At first, she couldn't believe it was real. She felt numb and terrified, as if her entire world had suddenly crashed. Along with Mark's car, she rushed to the hospital, her heart pounding, praying silently all the way there, hoping desperately that Mark would be all right. Seeing him in a hospital bed covered in bandages and barely conscious broke her heart. She sat quietly next to him, holding his hand, hoping her presence would somehow comfort him. In those first painful hours, she felt overwhelmed by fear and uncertainty, unsure what the future would hold. After the initial shock wore off, Mark's wife quickly realized she had to become strong, not just for herself but especially for Mark. She began managing everything for him, speaking with doctors, organizing care plans, and reassuring worried family members. She stayed constantly by Mark's side, refusing to leave him alone in the hospital, even for short periods. Nurses noticed her dedication and quietly admired her strength. Although she was exhausted emotionally, she hid it well, always trying to appear calm and confident, hoping it would encourage Mark to stay strong during his difficult recovery. Meanwhile, news of Mark's accident spread quickly to his fans. Social media was soon flooded with messages of love and prayers from people around the world. Fans posted heartfelt stories about how Mark's music and humor had helped them through difficult times, expressing how deeply they hoped for his recovery. Churches organized special prayer gatherings and online groups shared daily updates about Mark's condition, offering constant support and encouragement to each other. Mark's followers even created online groups dedicated entirely to praying for his healing and supporting his family emotionally. This huge wave of compassion helped Mark's wife stay strong, knowing so many people genuinely cared about him. As Mark slowly regained consciousness and began to understand what had, encouraging him to keep pushing forward, reminding him of how many people believed in his ability to recover completely. Her constant presence became crucial to Mark's emotional and physical healing. She patiently attended all of Mark's therapy sessions, always cheering him on and celebrating every small victory, like when he took his first shaky steps after weeks of painful attempts. When Mark felt angry or frustrated by the slow progress, she patiently listened, comforting him and reminding him of how far he'd already come. Her unwavering support helped Mark feel safe and motivated. He began seeing her as not just his wife but his strongest ally, someone whose love and support were genuinely saving him. Throughout this long recovery period, Mark also reflected deeply on his own life. The accident had forced him to slow down and truly think about what mattered most. Mark realized that before the accident he'd been too focused on proving himself, constantly performing, always trying to appear strong, independent, and successful. The accident showed him how fragile life really was. Mark began to see clearly what truly mattered to him: his family, his marriage, faith, and the genuine connections he had with fans. He started to think deeply about whether the way he'd been living before the accident was truly fulfilling, or if he'd been missing something important along the way. Fans noticed Mark's changing attitude as he started sharing short messages online about his recovery journey. In videos posted online, Mark openly talked about his struggles and emotional growth during recovery. Fans responded with even greater support, deeply moved by his honesty and vulnerability. They appreciated seeing Mark not as a perfect figure but as a real human being who faced real struggles. Mark's openness encouraged fans facing their own hardships, creating deeper connections than ever before. Through all of this, his wife's role remained absolutely critical. She not only helped him physically recover but also became his emotional rock, reminding him daily of his value beyond the stage. Friends close to the couple noticed that Mark's relationship with his wife seemed stronger than ever. Deeply enriched by the difficult experience they shared, many commented privately that the couple had developed a new, stronger bond because of the accident. Mark himself openly credited his wife for his emotional healing, publicly sharing how her love, support, and patience had completely changed how he viewed the relationship. As Mark continued to recover, speculation about his future grew. Fans wondered openly whether Mark would ever return fully to performing and public ministry. Some guessed Mark might decide to step away permanently from the demanding schedule that had worn him down. They thought perhaps he'd prefer a quieter life, focusing on more than. Share your thoughts in the comments, and don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to Space Age Insights, and click on the next video popping up on your screen.